The action genre is filled to the brim with retired hitmen and ex-military coming back for just one last job. Yet none can hold a candle to the Baba Yaga himself, John Wick. And in preparation for his fourth second coming, let's go through 20 John Wick details you never noticed before. The cryptic Continental concierge Charon often offers help to our murderous main character, but his name has a far darker origin than just a pleasant people person. Charon in Greek mythology, if you weren't aware, was the ferryman on the river Styx, accepting an obol per person to ride across into Hades. Our Charon isn't much different. Wick pays him a golden coin per person he's killed, furthering his roles in the criminal underground as a boogeyman. Charon's name isn't actually spoken in the first movie at all. It wasn't until 2019 that this mystery man got his moniker. Books and movies are usually set decoration or a fake one courtesy of a prop department, but the book the security guard is reading in the airport scene is very real. Stop me if things start to sound familiar. An ex-assassin returns in order to fight back against a secret organization. In doing so, he kills a lot of people. And there's a memorable moment involving an execution via a yellow number 2. However, John Wick lacks the satirical edge that sharpens Shibumi as a novel. Does also wear the tropes and plots of the satirical subject to show its absurdities. No shade to the ultra-violence of Wick. The popcorn flick is a groundbreaking spectacle of choreography. Ares, if you didn't know, was the god of war, spirit of battle, so her sharp blades taking more than one life makes more sense than not. But her namesake isn't what brings her to this list. What we found so interesting was her dagger's special ability to change length at a moment's notice, and her godlike healing. When Ares is stabbed with her own blade, it clearly goes through her hand and into her chest. Yet, unless it grew inches outside of our view, it wouldn't have been able to pierce any vital organs through her hand. And on that note, paying close attention to that last sign, and we see a miracle happen before our very eyes. After her left hand is stabbed, the wound heals within seconds, because there is no hole and there is no blood. Everyone in New York being after Keanu Reeves makes sense no matter what he's in, but nobody had to clone themselves all around the city to do it. This is the future. We use phones, and that's a harrowing task for any movie or production. Don't believe me? Find someone whose number ends in 8675309 and ask them how it feels. But sometimes you do want to have a personal touch in the projects you make. So while the numbers aren't active and are random, the area codes of those who accept the bounty on Wick's head is far from coincidental. Evan Schiff, who works as the film's editor, specifically chose 2 of these numbers to come from his home city of Syracuse. 315 area codes followed by a stream of random digits. A motto to live by if you ask me. Ares must have gotten her knives at the same smith that made the katana, which impaled Zero. At the very least, no magical healing is involved in this matter. So when Wick kebabs Zero up against a hard glass surface, the blade doesn't have any space to effectively come through. However, when Zero sits up, the blade is far enough to be seen in profile. Given that actual movie mistake, we can reason it out, iron out those narrative wrinkles with the steam of plausibility. Maybe the katana was manufactured just a little too heavy further down the steel, meaning that as Zero rose, the blade sunk farther into him. Sure, it's stretching, but that's where the fun is. So this next one isn't as odd as it may seem. The Venn diagram of classical music fans and fans of over-the-top gun fu might be more interlaced than one may assume. Like the movies of John Woo, the best action has a backbone made of notes and melodies, and in John Wick 2, the directors took a page out of the music sheet. What art gallery wouldn't play Vivaldi's Seasons? If you start the music as Wick starts his spree, the choreography will dance along with the music. Gunshots replaced the percussion in the music, so the directors had to time everything perfectly, using just the tightest of cuts to keep it on beat with what is arguably the most well-known piece of classical music. We now have a wonderfully fluid fight sequence. You've been working your ass off all week at a job that doesn't appreciate you to make money simply to afford to live. But there is one day in the vicious cycle we can all look forward to. Payday. And what a coincidence, because that just so happens to be the name of an extremely popular co-op shooter that is canonically in the same universe as John Wick. How is that possible? Well, we could talk about his appearance as a playable character in the sequel. Or we could mention the poster and graffiti art in the background of a few select scenes. But we'll focus on the tenuous detail that may or may not be a nod to the one line John Wick had before the finally playable character. He used to just say 1, which may explain why the order was sent out as 11111, or it's a reference to JFK. Spider-Man not killing his enemies is most likely because he is still a kid trying to do what's right. John Wick is just a straight-up assassin who is very good at removing lives from those who have just a little too much of it. What do these near polar opposites have in common? Besides the dead love interest, of course. Sorry, Gwen. Well, the rooftop garden is the exact same as the one seen in Spider-Man. We could also discuss the weird prevalence of self-destruction both men secrete with every soul-crushing decision, but we'll save the real heavy stuff for later. Sheldon Cooper would be a very odd bedfellow of the Baba Yaga, despite probably being a huge fan. However, if you ever play a little association game called Conspiracy Yarn, you can get from one to the other using the band, the Bare Naked Ladies. How? Well, they are responsible for the Big Bang Theory's theme song by the same name. They also had a hit song by the name 1 Week, which is about the same time all 3 John Wick films take place. Or so conventional wisdom would have you believe. The first film takes over a week, but the sequels stretch that to about a month from beginning to end. Still a breakneck speed, but just not the fantastical 7 days we'd all hope. And even after that month, it'd still be 2 days till they say they're sorry. Despite how the internet treats this, there is no need to get too complex with this next one. John Wick is sent into the desert to follow Canis Minor constellation, a way the movie nudges to Keanu Reeves' real life as he was in the band called Dogstar. And Canis means wolf. It's a literal dog star. That's simple. But this little tidbit also sets up a much more complicated connection that's coming soon enough. Ever notice how young Keanu Reeves is to play a retired hitman? I can only imagine the underground economy of hitmen and criminals suffers from late-stage capitalism like we all do. So doing some math, if John Wick was born in 1964 and the first movie takes place in 2014, the year it was released, then he would be 50 by the time the movie takes place. Since he started the movie having been retired for 5 years, this means Keanu Reeves was retired at the ripe old age of 45. Imagine being able to retire at 75, let alone 45. And that's what the script originally had in mind. John Wick was supposed to be much older due to his real-life inspiration being Kolstad's own grandfather. But if the movie Red was more your speed, don't fret, because by John Wick 4's release, Reeves will be older than Bruce Willis was when that was released, bringing him closer to that retired, grizzled, gray hitman envisioned all those years ago. It's no mystery that John Wick was not the title the first movie was written with. In fact, up until the casting of Reeves, the name was Scorn, which means revenge for those in the back. A bit too on the nose, but luckily Reeves convinced the producers to go with the much catchier John Wick. But how? Yes, Reeves creates wonders and has been a household name since Bill and Ted met George Carlin in a phone booth. How he did it, however, was simply forgetting the name in the first place. Reeves would often refer to the film by his character's name, and it just stuck. A truly whoa-worthy factoid to wet your collective whistles. The ever-immortal action hero is also responsible for the directors of the film, having brought on Chad and Dave, 2 stuntmen who Keanu had met on the set of The Matrix. But only Chad was credited. You probably missed the duo's debut. David got his time in the limelight through having directed Atomic Blonde and the short No Good Deed. But he makes a return on this list just a few entries down. You'll see, this setup is cool, I swear. So homages to directors and filmmakers who inspire you are more than common, they are almost the norm. And we have this relationship to thank for all the Andrei Tarkovski references we see. To start with some of the more on-the-nose topics, the theater is just straight up named after him. If we follow the uncredited co-director to Atomic Blonde, the Tarkovsky love continues as his movie Stalker is playing behind an action sequence. Nothing better than a sci-fi drama from the late 70s to get the crowd pumped. As an audience, we take Keanu Reeves to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, to be our John Wick, because he'll be there even in sickness. The filming of the fight in the nightclub must have been hell for the actor. During filming of the nightclub fight, Reeves was rocking more than a sharp suit and a pistol. He had the feverish body temperature of 103 Fahrenheit that day. Plus, he had to contend with learning the fight choreography the very same day. And if you've seen the film, you know that like Michael Jordan before him, being sick didn't hurt his performance. Bonus connection, both men had the same temperature. Reeves is not the only member of the cast who had to work through unfavorable health. Viggo, played by Michael Nyqvist, is more than just a fan of hats. Sometime during production, the Swedish actor suffered a nasty head injury that led to his head needing stitches. A wig wouldn't suffice, so he suggested wearing a hat. So anytime you see the monstrous mobster wear his jaunty cap, you can assume it was filmed post-head split. Now, Viggo isn't around much in the second film, but that's okay because we have the ever-incredible Lawrence Fishburne instead, playing the underground Bowery King. And even though the Titan has just over 10 minutes of screen time, he steals the show. You should recognize the King from another Keanu Reeves action flick, playing the wise Morpheus, leading Neo down the rabbit hole. John Wick returns the favor by giving Lawrence Fishburne the choice this time, but not before a cheeky line.
So I guess you have a choice.
See, this isn't the first time these two have met. In universe, this is apparently because the King just so happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But we as an audience can see this as yet another fun little wink at the shared filmography of these two. Our Matrix connections keep going though, then we get to see King choose between red and blue items. But that's not the last of the Matrix references in this film. There are a few more hiding that we'll get to in a bit.
Show me.
The screenwriter Derek Kolstad designed the character of John Wick with Paul Newman in mind. If you haven't heard of this silver screen legend, some of his most notable works include powerhouses like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He plays the titular Cassidy, a classic Western series. If you think of scrappy train robbers, you're probably thinking of this man. If not, then perhaps you'll recognize Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, where he portrays Brick. And if those two don't ring any bells, you've heard him voice Doc Hudson in the Cars movie before his passing, a role he got to reprise in the third movie thanks to previous recordings.
Oh, is that right?
Reeves had more than one memorable quote, but remember that other Matrix reference we mentioned oh so long ago? Well, Wick needs guns. Lots of guns.
What do you need? Guns. Lots of guns.
A direct rip from his line all the way back to the heady days of 1999. Neo tells Trinity that in order to save the day, he'll need guns. Lots of guns.
Guns. Lots of guns.
And an unaccountable number of racks appear around him to choose from, despite the Matrix being an earnest attempt at cerebral action exploring technology and inner being. The technology of the time kneecaps it in comparison. The groundbreaking work done by the film, however, is what lets John Wick become the beloved series it is today. Keanu Reeves has said that he sees the story of John Wick as an internal struggle between John and John Wick. We'll refer to them as John and Yaga to keep things clear. John, the married man who gets to live a civilian life, and Yaga, the trained assassin. Neither can live while the other is alive, and yet without Yaga, John can't live his life free. This is a beautiful parallel to the ever-memed, always relevant two wolves. Inside you there are two wolves, and they are fighting to take control. The message is the one you feed, aka the one you support, is the one that wins. John hates having to feed Yaga, but has no choice. This leads us to the constellation, Canis Minor. Is, as you can probably guess, one of two. Its more impressive Canis Majoris is also the rest of what is known as the Big Dipper. What does it mean that he has to follow the lesser of two constellations? Could this be a hint that he is on the way to live the quiet life as John that he so longs for? And that brings us to everyone's least favorite topic, the killing of John's dog. Having been the last line he had to his dead wife, what was effectively done all those weeks ago in the first film was kill any hope John could live. And if the movies follow that premise, his second dog surviving means it truly was the death of John. All that can exist is the Baba Yaga. But narrative themes aren't done developing until we see what John Wick 4 has to offer. We can all breathe now. There's nothing wrong with walking through memory lane with our favorite action flicks, but like so many in these films, our time is limited. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.